Next is our president's message with the Stonewall Democratic Club's president, Alex Mohajer. But before he speaks, we'll like to share a brief video with you on the history of Stonewall.
I have been beaten. I have had my nose broken. I have been thrown in jail. I have lost my job. I have lost my apartment for gay liberation. And you all treat me this way? What the fuck's wrong with you all?
Speaking to you from the Supreme Court, we have read from the bench, there is a right to marriage equality. I repeat, speaking to you from the steps of the Supreme Court, there is a right to marriage equality.
At 92, it feels like this is where I am supposed to be saying this. Get off your asses!
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Alex Mohajer.
Thank you, Mallory, and good evening. Thank you all for being here tonight as we celebrate the 44th Annual Stoney Awards. My name is Alex Mohajer, and in July, during the largest meeting of our 46-year history, I was honored to be elected the next president of the Stonewall Democratic Club. I'm proud to become the club's first millennial and first Iranian-American president, and to stand on the shoulders of a long lineage of activists who worked for decades to make ours one of the largest and most influential Democratic clubs in the state of California, and indeed one of the oldest LGBTQ and feminist political advocacy organizations in the United States. Today, we have nearly 800 members and thriving political, communications, financial development, community, and operations teams. Our slate mailers go out to more than 10,000 households all over LA County. Our steering committee is composed of 45 members who handle everything from email list communications to social media, fundraising, endorsements, leadership development, legislative action, and more. But it all began on a warm autumn night on November 8th, 1975, when just 13 queer Angelenos, spearheaded by Morris Kite, Howard Fox, Clayton Wells, and Jerry Parker, congregated in a Spanish-style stucco apartment in Los Feliz and commenced the very first meeting of the Stonewall Democratic Club. The founding members of the organization, inspired by the Stonewall riots, described the name Stonewall the, quote, language of liberation. And although they had been involved heavily for years with activist groups like the Gay Liberation Front, felt that there was a need to translate the enormous momentum of the time into political change, and that the LGBTQ community did not have its interests adequately represented in electoral politics. They desired to link the spirit of the liberation movement with what they called the progressive humanitarian outreach of the Democratic Party. So they moved quickly, established their agenda and our bylaws, and elected our first president, Morris Kite. By 1976, the Stonewall Democrats had succeeded in advocating for the adoption of the gay rights plank into the party platform of the California Democratic Party and sent 4 delegates to the Democratic National Convention. The rest, as they say, is herstory. Stonewall has had a front row seat to every major social movement of our time since, whether it be the National March on Washington, the HIV/AIDS crisis, the fight for marriage equality, resisting the Trump administration, or shouting from the mountaintops that Black Lives Matter. Our organization has been there pushing, advocating, resisting, and fighting, with each generation moving us closer to true equality and representation and facing their own unique set of challenges. Back in 1975, as our founding members got hard at work establishing this organization's roots, just a few miles away in Pasadena, California, a young Iranian single mother immigrated to the US to give her kids the opportunities that she did not have. She spoke not a lick of English and worked multiple jobs while going to school at night in order to put food on the table, to ensure her kids had a quality education, and to establish herself in a country where her family could pursue their own American dream. It would still be 10 years before my mom, Sarah, would give birth to me in 1985, but her sacrifice is why tonight, her son, who would have likely been killed in her home country, instead stands before you as the 19th president of one of the oldest and largest LGBTQ+ democratic clubs in the nation. So it will come as no surprise that I have a deep reverence for the sacrifice and the struggle of those who come before us, whether it's our mothers or the activists who chanted silence equals death as AIDS wiped out a generation of our people. When I was elected in July, I promised to move this club into the future, expand and diversify our reach, and honor our movement's history of activism and the responsibility that our namesake, Stonewall, imputes upon us to marginalized members of our community. Which is why tonight we will be honoring the activists, organizations, and elected officials who have been on the ground doing the work of bringing about social justice in their respective communities and recommitting ourselves to the spirit of the liberation movement while we do the work of pushing for a more diverse, progressive, and inclusive Democratic Party. And as a side note, all of our honorees tonight are women. I am proud to report that we have already been making good on that promise. Half of our newly elected officers are serving on the executive board for the first time, and more than a third of our steering committee is new to leadership. My first order of business as president was to create new committees on bylaws reform, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to appoint community ambassadors to Long Beach, Compton, and the Antelope Valley. My appointments to these committees included 7 people of color, 2 trans people, 3 lesbians, and 2 disabled persons, and all of these new committees are majority female. Together, we have hit the ground running, working successfully to defeat the Republican recall efforts against our governor, Gavin Newsom, a victory that is being credited to the work of community organizers like Stonewall, who, led by our political vice president, Jane Wishon, and one of our honorees tonight, Karen Ayers, our chair of political action, got hard at work canvassing, phone banking, texting, and tabling in order to stop a Republican power grab. We were able to host our first ever Stonewall Summer Social, our first in-person event in over 18 months, where we were proud to donate 100% of the proceeds to the legal fund of Ed Buck's victims. Following the atrocious anti-abortion laws that were passed in Texas, Stonewall partnered with the Women's March Foundation to organize and attend the March for Reproductive Rights, and had speakers from our organization represent us in downtown LA, West Los Angeles, Long Beach, and West Hollywood. We joined our trans siblings in protest over Netflix and their handling of trans employees demanding cultural changes at that company. And we were also proud to give back to the community and donate to the Marsha P. Johnson Institute's COVID-19 Recovery Fund, which gives direct aid relief payments to Black, transgender, or non-binary identified people who were hit hardest during the pandemic. And in keeping with our promise to recruit and enfranchise more BIPOC and trans members of our community, we were able to sponsor and attend the inaugural Trans Pride Long Beach, which was chaired by our very own Mallory Jenna Robinson. We have been able to pass resolutions advocating for groundbreaking progressive solutions to the most pressing concerns of our time, like the creation of the nation's first public bank and the elimination of racial and gender discrimination in the Los Angeles Fire Department. And we were currently hard at work developing the club's first ever diversity, equity, and inclusion statement, preparing to participate in the unveiling of the AIDS monument in West Hollywood on World AIDS Day, and of course, perk up everyone, we're gearing up to make our first endorsements of the 2022 election cycle. Your support of the club is needed now more than ever, and after the sobering losses we experienced in Virginia 2 weeks ago, it's clear that protecting and expanding our majorities in the House and the Senate next year is going to be an uphill battle. While we may have defeated Trump, we have not yet defeated Trumpism, and it's crucial that we elect progressives up and down the ballot right here in LA County and throughout California in order to protect our community's interests. We are fired up here at Stonewall and ready to go, and your support helps make this work possible. So many of you here tonight have been such incredible allies and friends to the club and the community. Thank you all for being here. Your support means the world to us, and it helps the wheels go round. You are all crucial to the work that we do, and we look forward to working with you all in the future. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. With that, I'll turn it back over to our host this evening, Mallory.